What's going on, guys? Today I want to make a quick video for the Power BI users out there that are connected to a Snowflake source. Specifically, how do we tell if our query and the subsequent transformations that we create in Power Query are getting folded to the source? Now, query folding, what is that? Well, the simplest way I can put it is say that the table you're connected to has 10 years worth of data and you bring that into Power Query, but then you filter it down to only 2 years worth of data. Is Power Query bringing in 10 years worth of data and then filtering it locally within Power Query, or is it folding that transformation and essentially converting it to SQL, pushing it back up to the source, and then making it a part of the initial call to Snowflake, reducing the impact and Snowflake query costs and bringing in only the 2 years that we need, which also helps with our capacity management in Power BI. Snowflake is unique compared to a lot of other database connections in Power Query in the sense that you don't have the option to right click on a step and select View Native Query. It's always going to be grayed out when you're connected via the Snowflake API. I don't know why this is, but there are some ways around it to determine whether your query is getting folded back to Snowflake or not. So I want to walk through a couple of those today, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, as you can see here, I've got two example queries, both date queries sourcing back to the same date table in Snowflake, but we're going to take two slightly different approaches here. So as you can see, I've selected a specific Snowflake database, and then in my navigation step, I navigate to this date table. And as you can see here, it starts on January 1st, 1900. There's going to be a lot of unusable data back that far. So just for the sake of example today, I've set this static filter to only display 2022 forward. Now, again, I don't want resources for both Snowflake and Power BI to be bringing in that 122 years of extra data all the way to Power Query, and then at that point reducing it with the filter applied step. I want that applied step with the date filter to be a part of the initial request for data back to Snowflake whenever the refresh occurs. So there's two ways I like to check for this, and one is within Power Query itself. I wish I knew where I found this trick and I would share that, but I can't remember. So I'm just gonna go ahead and show you guys. So basically you would come into the advanced editor. Right after the last step in your query, you would do a comma, and then you would type get metadata equals value dot metadata. And then here you would reference your last step. I'll just copy and paste it. I'm going to do another comma, query folding equals get metadata, open bracket, query folding, close bracket. Now we're gonna have to update this end step here to be our last step in the let statement. So we'll go ahead and click done. You'll see now that the output is that it shows whether something has been folded or not. Here it's showing true, and then it also shows some additional information if it has a native query, which is basically indicating if any SQL statement exists here at this step, and the kind of connection, and then your path. So good news, it's showing that it's being folded. Now, the other way I like to confirm this, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this step, as well as the get metadata step, is I actually like to go into Snowflake itself. Now, this depends on what kind of access you have in Snowflake, but if you have access to the query history, then it's a great way to see whether your query is actually getting folded or not. So I'm going to go ahead and click refresh preview just to kind of send another call back to Snowflake. And then I'm going to click over to Snowflake. And you'll see I'm already navigated over to this monitoring screen called Query History, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh this tab, and the top query should be the one that I just sent. So I'm going to select that, and I can scroll down here in the SQL text, and I can see that that filter is actually occurring in that call back to Snowflake, which confirms to me that it's getting folded. Now let's go back to Power Query. Let's look at my second example. So in this example, we're going to do the same thing real quick, and I'll just run through that in the advanced editor. All right, now you'll see in this example that it says is folded, has native query, false. Now this is what I get hung up on, and this is kind of what I want to call out, because a native query, when it relates to the Snowflake API, would be coming into that source and having a custom SQL statement here, which this does. So that should be true. And I don't know why that is. And I just wanted to call that out. It doesn't really affect how we're testing query folding today, but I did want to call that out because that seems inaccurate to me. But this shows that it is being folded. And if I delete those last two steps and come over and refresh the preview for the second query, then I can go over to the query history and confirm. And as you can see here, this is also getting folded. All right, guys, that's all I've got today for this trick on how to see if a query folds to Snowflake. If you've got any feedback or alternative ways to check for this, please leave it in the comments or let me know in my email. This is super important for all you Snowflake users out there just because Snowflake charges based on how much is queried. And so ideally, we would like any filter steps specifically to be folded to the Snowflake call so that we're reducing the amount that we get charged and that we're not querying the entire table, but rather a subset. So anyways, that's all I've got today. Have a good one.